La Maison de Verre, the House of Glass, built in Paris between 1928 and 1932 by Pierre Chareu. It is impossible to classify Pierre Chareu. Is he an ornamentalist, a furniture designer, an interior decorator, or simply an architect? He started work at the beginning of the 20th century, but only set up on his own account in 1919. He was part of what was to be known as the avant-garde movement. His furniture was an incarnation of the modern style and could be found in the apartments of the rich and cultivated middle class and in Marcel L'Herbier's films. This is furniture designed by an inventor, simple in appearance but with surprising mobile and articulated elements. Wood and metal, the modern material par excellence, are united here. Chareu was one of the first to use it for luxury furniture. Chareu designed the most original of his furniture, like this fan-leaf table, for his oldest customer, Annie Bernheim, the wife of Dr. d'Alsace. It was for them at the age of 47 that Chareu became an architect. In the Saint-Germain-des-Prés district in Paris, the couple owned a parcel of land on which stood a small and unpretentious private house between a courtyard and a garden. They wanted to pull it down and replace it with a new house. But the top floor was let and the tenant refused to leave. Chareu took up the challenge to build a positive tour de force. The first 2 stories were hollowed out. Only on one side he kept an entrance and a staircase that served the tenant's apartment that was left just as it was. The new building was inserted into the empty space. A steel framework that supported both the former second floor and the upper floor. Glass facades enclose the volume at the back and front, and a side wing that completes the whole. The new building lacked the normal attributes of a house. It had no roof and was set between 2 party walls. The façade giving onto the courtyard and hardly standing out from the original building is totally without relief or detail. It is a flat, opaque and completely neutral set of glass bricks, translucent but not transparent. Industrially produced glass bricks that are normally used in basement ceilings or to provide a bit of light in passages and public lavatories is the unique material employed in the main façade of a prestigious building. There are no openings in the glass wall on the courtyard side. Behind the house, which overlooks a large private garden, the treatment is very different. The basic material is still a glass brick, but the house is opened up by windows and projections, 2 bay windows and a large terrace. This difference in the treatments of the courtyard and garden sides is a great help against losing one's way in the interior labyrinth. If nothing can be seen other than translucent glass bricks, then that is a courtyard side. If transparent glass is visible, then that is the garden wall, unless you find yourself somewhere between the two, caught up in a set of superimpositions and reflections. The courtyard façade gives an image of simplicity and sobriety, but the bell push post at the entrance gives an idea of the complexity of the programme that the d'Alsace couple obliged the architect to obey. A restricted space had to include a doctor's practice with a waiting room, space for a secretary, an office, consulting rooms in which patients could be examined by the doctor, who was a pioneer in obstetrics, and also a place for society life, as it was known at the time, where the couple could welcome their guests properly. The service areas, kitchen, laundry, maid's room, and rooms for the master and his wife and children to spend their evenings together. This was the style for a large town house, but complicated by the lack of space, the inclusion of the doctor's practice, and the desire to be absolutely modern. The part scooped out of the original building was built up on 2 levels, ground and first floors. To enlarge the living space, the architect created a supplementary level. The house would have a ground floor, a first floor, and a partial second floor, leaving a large double-height space in front of it. The floors are hung on metal girders. There are no load-bearing walls, only partitions with no structural purpose that the architect placed where he liked to organise the space as he wanted. A glass box sliding under the main façade served as the entrance for both family and patients. The practice was on the ground floor. Partitions divided the secretaries' and doctors' offices and the examination rooms. The waiting room, set at the rear, has no door. With its long window onto the garden, it is an open space designed to be peaceful and functional. But functionality is just an outward show here. Next to the low-ceilinged waiting room, Chareu designed a high-ceilinged area that has no practical justification, other than to let the doctor's patients admire the constructional principles of the building, the steel framework and the glass wall. The doctor's office, which is just behind, also has an excessively high ceiling, giving the feeling of a cathedral, which is emphasized by the diffuse light from the glass bricks. The juxtaposition of these spectacular initiatives creates surprisingly complex areas. Chareu considered that the plastic effect was more important than the restraint and comprehensibility that generally ruled the modern movement. Enclosed in a stairwell made from rounded metal plates and glass partitions, the central feature of the ground floor is the grand stairway leading to the first floor. Grand is the right word. The metallic staircase with rubber-covered treads is suspended like a ship's ladder, a monumental ladder, as a critic wrote at the time, because despite its functional appearance, it is a ceremonial stairway. It is also in an unusual position. Instead of facing the entrance, it is in the middle of the house. Going upstairs means following a glass partition, then making a half-turn to ascend in the opposite direction. So the visitor goes upwards facing the glass wall and gradually discovering its true dimensions. That is a surprise of the first floor. The great wall of the courtyard façade is not just for a single space, one room furnished as a drawing room, but has the dimensions and the appearance of an artist's studio or a factory. Here the structure becomes a decor. The steel girders enhanced with red paint and clad in slate are real works of art. Yet they have a job to stand up to the glass wall. Confronted by 50 square meters of abstract and pure luminosity, they lose all relief and are nothing but silhouettes against the light. In one of his very rare writings mentioning the house, Chareu defends his use of glass in this way. He says that his idea was to bring as much light as possible into the house, but that classic windows would only have partially lighted it. And there is light. In the drawing room, it is impossible to escape the hypnotic effect of this light diffuser that has often been compared to a cinema screen, but this is a screen that makes it impossible to see or be seen. Contrary to the modern movement that extols openness and transparency, the translucent glass insulates the house and its inhabitants from an environment that they repel. This is the avowal of a retreat into the interior, of the sole values of the individual dwelling. A wall without windows is what we call a blind wall. All the same, there are windows onto the courtyard in the service side wing. Only the servants in bedroom, laundry or kitchen, rooms that need good ventilation, can see the sky. The ventilation system of the drawing room is on the same scale and in the image of the site. Nothing to remind us of traditional fenestration in this crank handle, these gears or these shutters that are in view to show us that we are in a machine house, yet tucked into a corner of the room so as not to spoil the permanent spectacle of the glass wall. The drawing room has no apparent lighting system. The main lighting is hidden outside. When night falls, powerful projectors replace the daylight, playing on the glass facades so that they continue to perform their task of diffusing light. An enthusiastic comment written in 1933 stated, "Chareu's house is cinematographical." But it is also a house for working and living in. The representative areas, the great staircase and the drawing room, are placed at the front. The more intimate areas are at the back, where the house regains its 2 floors. On the first floor, along with the drawing room, there is a second office for the doctor. And next to it, separated by one of the rare fixed dividing walls, is the dining room. All these areas communicate freely. When it was really necessary to segregate them, as in the case of the doctor's office, Chareu employed a metal-clad sliding door that is as big as a wall. When the doctor was not using his office, the movable partition could make the whole extent of the first floor available, from the cold abstract wall of glass up to this space at the back of the house that seems to float halfway between the inside and the outside. This is the last room, the most remote, the most intimate room on the first floor, and also the most open, Annie d'Alsace's boudoir, projecting into the garden by the extension of the large bay window, which helped the architect to gain a few more square meters of space. There is the same fluidity on the courtyard side. From the dining room to the kitchen, the space runs free, hardly at all encumbered by the single glass door. In the angle of the dining room, Chareu set a sort of drum to indicate the passage from the formal area to the service corridor. Seen from the dining room, this mobile-style metallic cylinder looks like a sculpture. A review in 1933 had no hesitation in comparing it with a work by Calder or Giacometti. Seen from the other side, it is a broom cupboard. The cupboard is in full view, but at the same time veiled by its own shape, which seems to be composed of some sort of cubist work along with the overhanging large black triangle that conceals the stairs leading to the upper floor, the family area, where the architect installed their bedrooms and one for the servant. But in his anxiety to provide his customers with the greatest possible freedom and comfort, Chareu always included a choice of access. A second stairway, in fact a fold-away ship's ladder, allowed the mistress of the house to go directly from her boudoir to her bedroom. The rooms are set side by side all along the garden facade. The private quarters for the married couple comprises a bedroom with an even larger adjoining bathroom. Then come the two children's bedrooms, each with a built-in shower. All the rooms give onto the large terrace. The style of the house and the lack of space denied the architect the use of traditional windows. He replaced them with sliding windows like those used in railway carriages, a sort of invitation to travel into the garden from rooms treated like compartments. On the other side, the areas reserved for private life loom over the drawing room. This is without doubt where the contradictions between the aesthetic of the house and the demands of everyday life were the most difficult to resolve. The problem was to preserve the openness and fluidity of the space, while still protecting the intimacy and tranquility of the bedrooms. Between the bedrooms and the drawing room, Chareu made a sort of passage. The drawing room side is lined with a screen made from wooden elements and metal shelving on perforated metal sheeting, through which framework the comings and goings in the drawing room could be admired as if from a gallery. On the bedroom side, he set a real partition with double doors in curved metal plates, like all the other non-sliding doors in the house. But there is a trick to the partition wall. Between the bedroom doors, the apparently solid wall is also made of doors to double-sided cupboards that the servant could fill from the passage without disturbing the occupants of the bedroom. The partition cupboard serves as an airlock, storage space, and for insulation, blurring the usual distinction between architecture and decoration. The same idea is pushed to the limit in the couple's bathroom. The metallic screens delimit the various areas and at the same time serve as storage cupboards that look like cabin trunks. The term machine suggests something cold and unpleasant, wrote an architect of the period, who continued, in the sense that there is no mechanization in this house, such apparatus is treated so lightly that it is organic rather than instrumental. Since the beginnings of the project in 1927, the house has always been known as the Maison de Verre because of its facades. But it is really the ironwork that is the most remarkable. With the help of Louis d'Albet, an iron craftsman of genius, Chareu fitted the whole house with the metalwork stairs, cupboards and doors that give it a tempo and its particular style. Some items seem quite simple, like this curved grille for the garden door, or this steel filigree staircase with its detachable grating treads that gave the doctor direct access to his office on the first floor. Others are obviously complex, like the fold-away ladder between the boudoir and the bedroom, a sort of metal insect, a mechanical toy sprung from the imagination of a geometrical dreamer. This is not a case of decorative fantasy, but the essential elements to make the house work properly. This pivoting screen hung at the bottom of the main staircase is one of the architect's solutions to the problems caused by having a medical practice on the ground floor. Patients, visitors, and the inhabitants all came down the same passage, but the patients were supposed to continue onwards to the waiting room and not take the stairs to the first floor. So the door is a visual sorting point. When patients passed by, the door remained closed. It is made of glass covered with a fine transparent mesh. The staircase is both visible and inaccessible. It is no more than an image to which only the masters of the house had the right to give substance. It is a set of subtle hints about the boundaries that bears witness to a very careful regard for others. Like this mirror that patients could adjust for their own height before going into the waiting room. This house is made to measure, a precision tool, where a specific and original solution was found for every problem encountered. Like this notch that enabled the door to open in spite of the rail. Such a riot of invention is what makes Chareu's work so rich, but it also underlines the limits of his architecture. It is a toy, noted an architectural review in 1933, an ingenious toy thought up by a cunning artist for his own delectation. Here is the ambiguity of a project that employs industrial materials in craftsmanship to give a resolutely modern form to a program that is less so. At a time when other architects were thinking in terms of standardization, economy and housing developments, Chareu was the exception to the rule, going for a lifestyle reserved for a wealthy elite. A house that sheltered the privileged, cut off from the herd and wrapped in its own material envelope. It gave all except one thing, this confrontation with the outside world in which the architecture loses in perfection what it gains in life.